Hey everybody, welcome to another story time with Frank. So today I'm going to kind of go way back in time to when I was a kid. And I lived in this big neighborhood in Arlington, Texas, where we pretty much all the kids knew each other. And there was kids that were a little younger than us, our age, and then older kids that we didn't even hang out with or didn't associate with, didn't even really know. And so, we knew them because they liked to pick on everybody else in the neighborhood. Usually there was only one or two of them and like 10 or 12 of us, so it didn't work out too well for them. But I remember one time, it was hot, so it had to have been around 4th of July. And one of the kids had gotten hold of fireworks, which is usually a dangerous mix when you have kids that are age range from 10 to 15 or so. It's kind of dangerous to have a bunch of fireworks. And a couple of my friends were actually out of town, and I think one of them had already moved out of the neighborhood by that time. And so we decided, my cousin came over and we were all hanging out with the kids all day long. Kids were popping black cats, and during the daytime the cops really didn't care if we were popping black cats. I don't think we ever saw the cops show up, ever. Not for that. So a couple of things happened. One, this one kid had been picking on a bunch of the kids in the neighborhood. Somebody decided to light one of those strobe flash things. You light them and it kind of starts out slow and then it like strobes really bright light. Well, he lit it and he had his bedroom window open. I guess they didn't have air conditioning or something, or it was broke. Somebody threw it in there. Well, he ended up catching his bed on fire. So that's kind of strike one for the neighborhood and for the kids. So then everybody takes off, and my cousin and I were already way up the street when that happened, and everybody came running up and told us what happened. I was like, everybody's going to get in trouble if we're all hanging out. We should split up. I said, my cousin and I are going to the store, and so I said, well, let's all split up, and then we'll meet back up in like a couple of hours and make sure, if nobody got in trouble, then we'll keep hanging out. So we went to the store. And when we were on our way back up over the pedestrian bridge, there's a big pedestrian bridge in our neighborhood that went over the highway. All the kids were up there, like all of the neighborhood kids were up there on that bridge. And I told my cousin something didn't seem right. So a friend of mine was up there, and I was like, hey, what are y'all doing there? Like, well, we're lighting fireworks and dropping them off the bridge and hitting cars. And I was like, no, I'm getting out of here. He was like, why? And I said, because somebody's going to end up going to jail or getting a ticket. I don't want to do that. So I told my cousin, come on, let's not get in trouble. So we take off for my house, and my dad was outside for something. I don't know if he had went out to his truck or what, but he was standing on the porch when we got home, and he was like, he said, what have y'all been doing? And I said, well, we went to the store. We were walking around with the other kids, and they were popping fireworks. And I said, they started dropping them off the bridge, and we left. I said, I don't want to get in trouble for that. And he was like, yeah, I don't blame you. So here comes my friend, probably not 2 minutes later, and he's like, can I hang out in your house? And I was like, I guess so. And my dad said no, because my mom was sleeping. And he said he didn't want a bunch of kids in the house. He wanted us to stay outside to, kind of, I guess, burn off energy so we weren't loud because my mom was sleeping. And it wasn't probably that late. It was probably close to 10 o'clock. Well, here comes a cop car coming up the street with his hazard light on. Or not his hazard, his spotlight. So he's shining his spotlight. He comes up to my house, and he gets out. And he said, have any of y'all been on the bridge tonight? And I said, well, me and my cousin were, but that was a lot earlier. And we went to go get drinks. And he goes, you weren't up there when kids were popping fireworks? Before I could say anything, my dad was so cool. Not that I would have gotten in any trouble, but he just said, no, they've been here with me the whole time, except for going to the store. And the cop was like, okay. And he goes, what about that kid? Which is a friend of mine, which I guess this kid thought my dad was going to vouch for him, but my dad was going to vouch for him. And my dad was like, he just came walking up, and we were all standing out here. So the cop was like, well, were you the one throwing fireworks off the bridge? And he goes, no. And the other cop that was in the car, let two of the kids out of the back of the car that were up there doing it. And they were like, yeah, he was the one doing it. And he was like, no, you guys were the one throwing them off. And so they ended up all getting talked to. I don't know if they ended up getting tickets or what, but I know their parents got talked to. And they all got in a bunch of trouble and got grounded for it. So we didn't see them for a week or two after that. But I thought that was funny. It was really cool my dad did that. But, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten in trouble because we weren't, I guess the cop could have said, well, you were there and you didn't stop them or you know, said something, but he didn't. My dad just covered for us immediately, which was pretty cool. So after that, we kind of settled down on the fireworks. I know there was one other incident where there was somebody working on cable or phone or something and had their van open, and they were in there working on doing something with some wiring. I guess the thing it was some kind of van, and it had a bunch of like little compartments on the side and then like a little desk thing in the very back, so the back doors didn't even open. So the guy's in there working on something, and we were actually in my friend's backyard, and we hear this yelling, and we look over the fence, and some kid had thrown a whole big huge roll of black cats inside that van lit. So needless to say, after that, anytime we tried to pop anything, we pretty much got busted immediately. The cops just showed up and were like, put them away, stop. I know there was a couple other times that we did pop some fireworks that we didn't get busted. And one of those times, and I love this story because it makes me laugh every time. I have relatives that lived in the same neighborhood. So I went over there, and they were at their friend's house for New Year's Eve, and my parents didn't want to go over there. My mom usually went to sleep by 10 or 10:30, and my dad was watching TV, and then he was going to go to bed. So I said, can I go over there? And they're like, yeah. Since it was my aunt and uncle's house, they didn't care, and it was only a couple of blocks away. So we were popping fireworks, and the cops never showed up or did anything. And then one went astray, and the cop showed up and told us to stop. And we're like, okay. So I told my aunt, well, I'm just going to walk home. It was only 3 blocks, and it was my neighborhood. I knew the neighborhood, so I wasn't worried about anything. So I go walking up my street. I had to go down their street and take a left and then walk up my street. And so I hear all these people yelling, and then the cops I saw earlier come whizzing past me like fast and stop like right before they get to my house. About, I guess that was 2 houses down from my house. And there's a ton of yelling. And the people that lived in the house where all the yelling was happening at, I had already had problems with when we first moved in. I was a kid. My parents had to put extra dirt around the foundation because it had, you know, up Dallas-Fort Worth area, the land gets dry and any kind of rain washes it away. So they were building it up. Well, there was a pile of dirt, and me and my friend were messing with it, and we were breaking it up. And then we were going to help my parents move it. And this lady comes down from that house and starts screaming at me about not playing in someone else's dirt. And I was like, this is my house, go away. And I ended up having to go grab, I think it might have been my mom, and told her, and she walked out there, and the lady took off for her house, and we never saw her after that. Well, I come walking up the street, I see that lady screaming her head off, and there was probably, I think there were some people across the street and one house down. They were all together drinking on New Year's Eve. So basically a fight had ensued, and the cops were there trying to break everything up. And they had put the guy that lived at that house, that woman's husband, under arrest. They put him in cuffs. And he was being very, very resistant to the whole process. And they ended up basically laying him on the ground. And I don't mean gently on a pillow. He got laid out on the ground. So the wife comes screaming through the yard and runs at the cop. And the cop, they put him down on the ground. And then I guess they were going to recuff him and then shackle his feet. And she come running at the cop with her fist cocked, and he just happened to grab her and spin her around to try to put her on the ground. And she hit the people across the street. She hit their van. And this is what makes me laugh, because I remember seeing it and hearing it. And I should say, I was already past that situation, and I was actually in my yard. My dad was outside watching it. And so when I walked up, I was like, do you see what's going on? So we were standing in the driveway watching this whole thing. This lady comes out. She's about to throw a punch at the cop. He grabs her wrist and twists it and spins her around to try to put her on the ground where they were too close to the van. So here's the van, here's her face, and it went boom and dented in the van with her face. And I started laughing. I was like, oh my God. It was just like, imagine a sound of a bowling ball falling on a hood of a car. Like if you had just a hood, nothing else under it, just laying on the ground, and you dropped that bowling ball, what that boom would sound like, that's basically what it sounded like. So she was out cold. They were able to cuff her, and I think they ended up taking like 4 or 5 people to jail for, I think a couple of people got assaulted. I know the woman that lived there got assaulting a police officer, and there was a bunch of other charges, but it was pretty funny. And what really cracked me up, years later, I actually delivered pizzas in the neighborhood, and I happened to deliver a pizza there to those people, and they were the nicest people in the world. They still drank, but they had found religion and weren't as violent. But I thought it was really funny that, of course, I didn't mention anything about seeing her dent the van with her face, and that dent was there. I don't think those people ever fixed it until the point where they moved out, and that was several years later. That dent was still inside of that van. So it's my fireworks stories in the neighborhood. If you like the story, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe. If you subscribe, then you'll get notification when there's new videos. If you look on your left under your subscriptions, it'll show that I've posted a new video, and you'll get to hear all my stories. So thank you for watching Story Time with Frank, and make sure you check out the rest of my videos, and I'll be telling stories to you later.